top mistakes and the top tips on how to fix them for better dinking and better kitchen play overall. So if you've played pickleball before and you've realized it's kind of hard, it's pretty simple in what it's supposed to be, but it's pretty hard to hit consistent dinks over here. Or if we're newer to pickleball and we're trying to figure out this whole dinking thing and we want to be ahead of the game and learn some tips right now, pickleball dinking. The court is not that big, and right now our goal when we're dinking is to get the ball into this kitchen, so 7 feet on the other side of the net. So if I'm here, I got 14 feet to work with, and the whole goal is to not let the opponent take the ball out of the air. So it's a little bit of a tug of war here. We're going, oh, if I pull them wide, if I do this, you're thinking too much right now, but in terms of what we're doing too much is our body's moving too much. When our eyes are bouncing, it's harder to find the sweet spot. And try this at home. Try having a partner throw a ball to you and do it with your eyes bouncing, and try to do it with your hand down here. It's hard to catch that ball because your eyes are further away from the contact point and your eyes are bouncing around. And we do that a lot when we're dinking. We try to add too much and our body's moving too much. And so our sweet spot is seemingly moving and it's hard to find really, really good contact. So slow it down, do a lot less, especially meaning don't use as much wrist. And so we're just going to hit the ball nice and lightly over. And there's 2 types of dinks. We have to always want to make sure. So tip number 2 is that we have to make sure that we have a defensive and an offensive dink. So these cones here represent where we want to put a lift dink, which is a defensive dink, halfway into the kitchen. It's there on purpose because even the tallest opponents have a hard time reaching this out of the air and then doing anything with it because now the net's in the way. When we get a better ball that we feel more comfortable with, we can do what's called a push dink and go for one that's more like 1 foot inside of the kitchen line. So we know we want to do a lot less. We want to quiet our body movement, keep the paddle out in front, and just very, very lightly hit this ball. We cannot hit it with that much pace when the ball's below the net. That's why you're trying to make sure your opponent hits it below the net as well. A good way to practice less is more for dinking is seriously throwing the ball. We'll throw it. So we'll stay in here and we'll toss it where we want it to go. Notice when I do this, I can't get very wristy. If you were to throw a ball to a small child right now and try to toss it to them, they said, me, give it to me. You wouldn't wing it with your wrist because you'd risk hitting them in the face. You would, here you go, nice and lightly, and toss it. That is your dinking motion. That very nice, light, use your legs and use your shoulders. And so that leads us into tip number 3, use your bigger muscles. This is all because we're using too much wrist a lot. So the mistake is we're too wristy. And the fix is use your bigger muscles, use your legs and your shoulders to, just like when we threw that ball, use our legs and our shoulders to keep everything nice and quiet. So all these tips, what is very nice is they all build into each other. So if you're doing too much, what you're probably doing is you're being too wristy. Your eyes are bouncing around and we're moving more than we need to. Keep it nice and calm, keep it quiet. Pretend like you're just throwing the ball where you want it to go. And it's totally fine to move your opponent around. In fact, I want you to. But we're moving them left and right very, very quietly. We're not having to do all this with our wrist and trying to get too much spin because it doesn't translate to a whole lot. There's not a lot of time for the ball to really impart that spin. And because they're not having to go that far, they're very likely going to get that ball anyways. So you're assuming all the risk and they're just going to get the ball over anyways. And if they're doing a good job making sure that less is more, like tip number 1, they're just going to, sure, move side to side with your spin. Less is more, get the ball into the kitchen. And you took all of this risk and it really wasn't rewarded yet. So we want to make sure that we do less is more. We want to make sure that we use our bigger muscles, our legs and our shoulders to drive this ball. The nice thing is these are the same muscles that we're going to use for all of our shots. When we hit good serves or big old drives, we're doing the same thing. We're just adding some more gusto to it. So less is more, quiet the body, paddle out in front. So tip number 4 is we want to make sure that we keep our paddle very, very out in front. We're not locking our elbows out that far in front, but it's really, really out there. And that's because we always want to be prepared in case our opponent chooses not to dink and they fire one at us and they hit it quickly. If our paddle's here because we're thinking, hey, they've been dinking, all the balls are down here, I'm just going to stay ready for this. You're open here. You now become a part of the court and your chest is opened up, or you're probably going to end up doing this very late. The ball's going to pop up and your opponent's going to put it away. So remember, the whole goal is to try to get the ball into this kitchen here where your opponent cannot take the ball out of the air. If your paddle's down like this, they're kitchen, their zone, that 7-foot zone just got a whole lot bigger because now it's including your own body because they're gonna get you to pop it up and put it away. So nice and out front with our paddle, nice athletic stance. And that leads us into our other tip. We're not warming up enough when we play. Seriously, it is not enough to just go out here like we all are guilty of sometimes and just stand up tall and dink with your friends. We dink with our friends for 5 minutes and then all of a sudden we're ready to go. Maybe we hit 1 or 2 serves. Our body is not only not ready, so we're opening ourselves up for injuries, but our technique is going to falter at the same time too, because this is the tip. We're not getting low enough on our dinks. If we stand up too tall, remember what we said about getting a ball thrown to you and with your eyes very far away, catching it, it's hard to catch it that way. We want to make sure that our eyes are closer to our contact, like we would do in baseball when we're fielding a ground ball. We're nice and low. If we did this, then it's going to be harder to make contact. It's harder to see. So same thing when we're dinking. We want to make sure that we're nice and low when we're out and that we're mobile enough to get to these balls. So that's where the warm-up is very, very important. And this 5-minute dinking warm-up like this is not going to cut it. Eyes closer to the paddle, we'll be able to make more contact on the sweet spot. We know now that less is more. We don't need all of this from here. We're going to be very, very quiet. We're going to be very, very compact. We're not going to be wristy. We're going to use our legs, we're going to use our shoulders, and our paddle is going to remain out in front. We're going to be nice and warmed up. And then we're going to also always remember that there are 2 types of dinks. Meaning if the ball is here and it's not a very good spot, it's in my red zone, so my knees and below, I'm not going for this red. It's in red. This is now to leave this alone, because if I try to take a ball from here and I try to find this red cone on the other side, it's very hard to get it over the net and get it down where your opponent can't smack it. Just take the safe route. There are plenty of dinks where we're just going to go ahead and take the safe route and we're just going to lift it. So if we're throwing it again, these 2 types are lifting it onto the blue, use my legs, I use my shoulders, or a little bit more linear. This one's going to be a little bit more flatter when I'm going for this on the other side, out front. But everything was legs and shoulders and nice and compact. So remember, if you're on defense, totally fine. Save the better dink for another day. Just lift it. Aim for the blue halfway on the other side of the kitchen. If it's a better one and it's sitting up a little higher, or you can take the ball out of the air, we can go for the red. Little bonus tip, try to take more balls out of the air if you're comfortable. Don't get caught reaching too much. Make sure that our arm isn't completely locked out, because then we get wristy. And we know that's one of our tips, don't be too wristy. But if we can, if it's sitting up a little higher, feel free to give it a little bit. Not in terms of just pace, but just a little bit flatter, finding this ball for your opponent, because this can be a really hard one to hit repetitively. Like, subscribe, and notification bell below. It's absolutely the biggest, best, and freest way to say thank you for these videos if you received something of value today. And next time you see us around, hop on in.